Welcome to Nowhere, Chapter 15. Until we arrived in Jordan, I'd always thought of myself as being me, Omar. My father, Hamid, my mother, Layla, my brothers and sisters, well, you know about them. I was Omar Hamid from Basra, then from Dara, then from a village in the country, and my cousin was Rasul, and I was going to be a businessman. Now, all of a sudden, I was a refugee, and even though my family was still there, nothing felt the same. We were at the bottom of the heap. We had only the clothes we stood up in, a few extra ones and a blanket or two, though Musa had brought his laptop, and Iman had smuggled in a couple of books. Nobody saw us as real people who had had lives. We were just refugees. It was only later that all these thoughts came to me. As we came over the top of the ridge and saw the lamps set up under the trees, lighting up some big canvas tents and tables with bottles of water in them, I just felt a wild surge of relief. Everyone else, all the people struggling up the path to safety, felt it too. Some were crying, hugging each other, and thanking God in loud voices. We could still hear the occasional crack of a sniper's rifle on the far side of the ravine. Their Jordanian soldiers, and quite a lot of them, had guns too, but they were slung across their backs, out of harm's way. And when they turned, I could see the little red, green and black flashes of the Jordanian flag, stitched onto their sleeves. I knew that then for us, the war was over. One of the soldiers was talking to Baba, pointing him in the direction of the tents. Another had put his arms out to block Hassan and Yahya's way. No, no, Hassan was protesting. That's our uncle over there, our family. We've come from Dara together. Baba heard him, turned and nodded, a bit unwillingly, I thought. The soldier hesitated, but then another one near the edge of the ravine called out to him. Hi, Clef, come and help. There's an old guy with a wheelchair down there. Hassan and Yahya saw their chance and hurried over to Baba. They picked up as many of our bags as they could carry, and stuck closely behind us as we went towards the tents. I don't remember much about that night. Someone gave me a bottle of water and a bread roll with some cheese. There was no room under canvas, but we found a place where we could stretch out together, under the trees. It was quite noisy. Children were crying and mothers were shouting at them not to get lost. It was cold too. I was glad then that Ma had made us sweat through the day in our winter clothes. I pulled my jacket over my head and went to sleep. A kid tripping over my legs woke me up. I scrambled to my feet, fear kicking in my stomach, not knowing where I was. The sun was up and the light was blinding, but I saw the boy who'd woken me, sprawled out in the ground where he'd fallen. Oi, I said, you should look where you're going. He stuck his tongue out. Then he picked up a stone and threw it at me. You little... I began and lunged for him. He darted out of my way. Riyadh, a woman's tired voice called out. Stop that. Go and fetch water for your sisters. The boy took no notice of his mother, but ran off to tease a group of younger children. The woman looked at me apologetically. I can't do anything with him. He's been out of control since they killed his father right in front of him. I didn't want to hear. I'm sorry, I said hurriedly, and looked round for my family. Musa was struggling to stand up. His muscles were always stiff first thing in the morning, but I could tell he was having more trouble than usual. You all right? I called across to him. He scowled at me. What does it look like? Like something hurts? My leg, where I fell on it. Come and help me up. He hated asking. Before I could reach him, Hassan was hauling him to his feet. He glanced across to a Jordanian soldier, and I could see he was hoping his closeness to Musa had been noticed. Musa grunted something, which might have been thank you, but probably wasn't. Baba had walked across to join the jostling crowd of people clustering around a group of Jordanian soldiers, who seemed to be checking papers. Beyond them was a line of trucks with canvas roofs, as well as a couple of ambulances. Someone with a bloody bandage wrapped around his head was being helped into one of them. Baba signalled to me. I went over to him. Tell everyone to get over here. We've got to stick together now. When they've checked our papers, they'll put us on a truck. Where are they going to take us, Baba? He turned away without answering, but someone else said, to a refugee camp, to a wonderful new life, 5-star accommodation, top restaurant meals, 3 times a day. Amazing visions were sloshing round in my head. Really, I said, my voice coming out all squeaky. I could feel a stupid grin spreading across my face. He's kidding, Dumbo, said Musa. A soldier started to push the crowd, herding people into an orderly line. Baba turned and saw me. What did I tell you, Omar? Get your mother, quickly. I still get the shakes when I remember how Baba nearly left our papers in his jacket pocket in the stable house. With them, we could at least prove who we were. Without them, we'd have been lost in the desert without any camels. A couple of soldiers had forced everyone into a sort of line, and we shuffled slowly forwards. Hassan and Yahya hovered around us. Hassan tried to play with Fuad, who looked a bit withdrawn, and Yahya flirted with Nadia, in spite of Ma's discouraging looks. Overdoing it, aren't they? Musa muttered to me. He was still suspicious of them. We were waved through at last. 2 of the trucks already filled up and left, and there was a panicky scramble towards the 3rd one. Hassan got there first. He stood in the little flight of steps and blocked anyone else from getting on, until our whole family was up inside the truck, sitting by the open back with our bags round us. I smiled at him. He seemed like a nice guy to me. The engine revved up noisily, ready to go, and a soldier lifted the steps into the back on top of our bags. Help me, mister, called a young voice. A boy who looked about 10 years old was holding up his arms, pleading to me. Me too, cried the little girl, standing beside him. Where's your family? Shouted Yahya above the roar of the engine. We're on our own, the boy said, a desperate look on his face. I leaned down, grabbed the little girl, and hauled her in, while Yahya lifted the boy. The truck was already moving. It lurched off with a grinding of gears. It was strange to be crammed into such a small space with people we didn't know. I was annoyed to see that the boy who'd thrown a stone at me was in the truck with his mother and 3 little sisters. Stop it, Riyadh, his mother kept saying. Don't do that. But it was obvious that she had no hope of being listened to. Ma kept looking at the 2 children that Yahya and I had pulled on board. Where's your mummy, Habiti? She said, asked the little girl, who stared unsmilingly back at her. She's dead, the boy said in a matter-of-fact voice. Everyone's dead. A bomb fell in our house. We got out, just her and me. We ran away. Wallah! Ma's voice was soft with pity. Isn't there anyone left, an uncle or an auntie? The boy shrugged. We don't know where they live. He turned to look out of the back of the truck along the way we'd come. There was no proper road at first, just a bumpy track across the desert. I had to hang on to one of the metal struts that held up the canvas roof and look out of the open back at the horizon to stop myself from feeling sick. It was better when we turned onto a proper highway. It was silly, I know, but I couldn't help thinking about what the man on the road had said about lovely restaurant meals. I'll have the lamb kebabs, please, I heard myself saying inside my head, and some of those stuffed vine leaves, and the bread hot from the oven, with some baklava to follow, dripping with honey. I was so caught up in my dream that it was a shock when the truck pulled up with a squeal of brakes. I was frightened too, because I was staring out at a tank with a huge gun pointing out from the turret above towards a metal gate. This is a trick. They're taking us back to Syria, I thought in a panic. We're going to be imprisoned, tortured and shot. Then I saw the Jordanian flag flying from a mast nearby and began to breathe more easily. Over the loud rumble of our truck's engine, I could hear the driver call out to the soldiers by the gate. I've got 35 at the back, more or less. Mainly women and children. A couple of young blokes you'll want to check. I didn't hear the answer. I felt shoves from behind and a flurry of arms and legs. Hassan and Yahya were pushing their way to the open end of the truck. Thanks for everything, brother, Hassan said to me quickly. We're going on our way now. Where are you going? Baba called out fretfully. Europe. Hassan already jumped down, and Yahya was scrambling out after him. I was sorry then that I'd let Musa's suspicions influence me. I wished I'd been friendlier. They were only doing what Rasul had done after all. How are you going to get there? I called out. Flight to Turkey. sea crossing to Greece. A couple of Jordanian soldiers were looking at them, and one had started to move forward. Hassan was already walking quickly away, with Yahya almost running after him. "If you get to Norway and meet my cousin Rasul, say hi to him from me," I called out after them, but neither of them turned round. There was a sound of a heavy metal gate being drawn back, and then the truck rolled forward. It stopped, and another gate creaked open before we moved on again. A short while later we stopped for the last time and the engine was switched off. The silence was weird. I heard the driver's door open. He came round to the back of the truck and reached in to lift out the steps. "Where are we?" Riyadh's mother called out. "Za'atari. Za'atari refugee camp," said the driver. "Come on, get out. This is it, you're here." My stupid dream of a nice hotel and a wonderful meal faded away like a light going out as I looked round. The two sets of huge metal gates had shut behind us. They were shutting out the word of war. But they were shutting us in. To what? I was the first to get out of the truck. Everyone behind me was so impatient, I almost fell off the bottom step. I should have helped the others down with the bags and everything, but I couldn't move. I stood in a daze, looking round. This is what I saw. Long rows of dingy white tents stretching into the distance, set in a flat, gritty yellow desert, dazzlingly bright in the morning sun. There were European letters in blue writing on every tent. I'm a bit shaky with the English alphabet, and though I tried, I couldn't make out a word. "Unkher," I muttered under my breath. "Doesn't make sense." "They're initials," Mrs. said behind me. "United Nations High Commission for Refugees." "How do you know that?" He gave me a pitying look and didn't bother to answer. Everyone's out of the truck now, standing around not knowing what to do. Suddenly, Musa staggered and half fell against me. I looked round to see that Riyadh had snatched his bag off his back. "Hey!" Musa's trying to shout. "Give that back!" Riyadh danced around, waving the bag over his head. "Cripple, cripple, come and get it!" "My laptop, he'll break it, Musa was saying desperately. Riyadh saw what was going on. "Riyadh, stop that," she said weakly. "Give the boy back his bag." Riyadh took no notice. I lunged for him with murder in my heart. Riyadh saw me coming and hurled the bag into the air. I leaped for it and caught it, but landed awkwardly on my ankle, twisting it painfully. "You little—" I began. Before I could go on, Baba called out, "Stop dawdling! Get our things together. We're supposed to be following that man." Moose had gone white. He held his hands out for his bag. "I'll look after it," I said, heaving it onto my back. "And when I get a hold of that imp, I'm going to tear him limb from limb." It was all a bit of a blur after that. You realise when you become a refugee that there's no hurry anymore. You might not be about to die from a shell blasting through the walls of your house, or from a barrel bomb falling from the sky, but you might easily die of boredom. You have to stand about in line waiting for someone to ask you a million questions and then give you a card which tells you that you're a nobody now. You don't belong anywhere anymore. No one wants you. You have to wait in other lines, lots of them, until someone gives you disgusting meat, which is supposed to be hot but isn't, in a greasy pizza box. Then there are more lines for vouchers that you can swap for a bucket, perhaps, or a thin grey blanket, a jerry can or heater. At last, when we were all getting scratchy with hunger and tiredness, someone took us to our tent. We stood at the entrance looking in. "Is this it, then?" said Iman disbelievingly. No one answered her. Sand lay in eddies across the hardboard floor. A pile of grey foam mattresses was stacked up at the far end, and the canvas walls billowed in and out in the strong breeze. Ma said, "Come on, Iman, help me sweep out the sand." "What with? We haven't got a broom." Ma stared at her wildly. "No broom?" "No, nothing. All gone. Everything's finished." It was as if someone had cracked inside her. She ran blindly across the pile of mattresses and collapsed with her back against them. Then she covered her face with the end of her hijab and burst into tears. Baba looked at her helplessly. Then he turned on Iman. "You heard your mother. Sweep the floor. Never mind no broom. Use anything." Iman scowled. She tugged off her hijab and began to swish across the hardboard, raising clouds of dust. "Where are Hassan and Yahya?" Fawad said, following the rest of us inside. "They've gone to Europe," I said enviously. Ma lifted her head. "And those poor little children," she wailed. "All their family dead. Where are they?" "I saw them, Ma," said Iman. "A woman came up and took them with her. She looked nice." "They have special facilities for orphan children," Baba said dismissively. "Omar, come with me, unless you don't want to have anything to eat for the rest of the day. We've got to swap these vouchers for a meal." It took ages for Baba and me to find the food place, and then we got lost on our way home. We must have walked for nearly an hour, trudging up and down long straight tracks lined with identical tents, weighed down with a stack of pizza boxes and cartons of juice. I was beginning to panic when I caught sight of Fuad. He was standing out in the road with a look of horrified fascination on his face, watching Riyadh poking a stick at a little boy to make him cry. "Baba," he called out, "Ma's upset. She thinks you've been arrested. Have you got any food? I'm so hungry." As we followed him into our tent, I heard a familiar voice. Riyadh was standing in the entrance to the tent next door, calling out, "Riyadh, stop that! Come inside!" My heart sank. We'd got the neighbours from hell. While we'd been out, Iman had managed to get some of the sand off the floor and arranged the mattresses round the tent's sides. She'd opened the roll that she'd carried all the way from Syria on her head and had laid a couple of blankets over two of the mattresses. She'd stowed her bags tidily in a corner too. It didn't look like home exactly, but my heart lifted a bit. We sat down and opened the food boxes. They were all starving by now. "They call this food," said Ma, poking a dried up bit of chicken with a disgusted finger. I was so hungry by then that I would have eaten a bowlful of moldy rice. The meal was not bad, but it wasn't nice either. The rice was soggy, the chicken was tough as leather, and the vegetables were squashy and tasteless. The best things were the hunks of bread. I sat back when I'd finished my share and watched the wind blowing in more sand, making patterns of it across the floor. Iman whispered something to Ma. "She needs the toilet," announced Ma. Baba wrinkled his nose. "I've been to the toilets. They're disgusting. She can't go on her own. There are men hanging around." I knew what was coming. I didn't even wait to be asked. I need to go myself anyway. "I'll go with you," I told Iman. "Musa, Fuad, don't you need to come too?" Baba had been right at the toilets. They were in a breeze-block building that looked all right from the outside, but inside they were filthy. I'd never seen anything so disgusting in my life. Iman had to manage with her floor-length abaya too. She looked pale when she came out, as if she was going to be sick. "You mean we've got to go through that every time?" she said faintly. I'd made sure to notice exactly where our tent was, but it still wasn't easy to pick it out from all the others. "Omar, wait for Musa," Fuad called out. We were nearly there. I turned around and saw Musa was limping badly. "It's only a bruise," I said, sounding unsympathetic, even to myself. "It's not. Hip. Strained it, coming down the ravine." He held out his right arm to me. He didn't need to say anything. I knew what he wanted. I dipped my left shoulder so that he could hook his arm around my neck. He'd often walked like that before, ever since I could remember, in fact. I didn't mind helping him along. I was feeling quite shaky myself, and his touch was comforting. "Thanks for getting my bag off that little devil." He was wincing with every step. "Do you realize they've moved into the tent next to ours?" "I think he's funny," said Fuad. "He's really naughty." He looked up, his eyes going from my face to Musa's, reading our furious expressions. "What are you looking at me like that for? I'm just saying." "That poor woman," said Iman. "She's got 4 children and she's completely on her own. Don't you feel sorry for them?" "No," I said brutally. "If Riyadh's dad was anything like Riyadh, she's better off on her own."